Knicks family, what's poppin'? It's your boy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, whatever it is, and wherever you are. Hopefully everything is good with you. I'm here for just a short stint, ladies and gentlemen, because we got a slew of shows tonight. Of course, we got the Queen's Court coming up at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be on with a fellow Brazilian Knicks fan after this at about 6 o'clock. So make sure you check that out. I think you all know who the guy is. So make sure you go check him out, ladies and gentlemen. But we got some news for you. We're going to kick it off. According to Shams, the Knicks and the Utah Jazz are not close on a deal, and it's been quiet. Don't really know what that means. Not sure what to think about it. I mean, Brian Windhorst the other day did say, expect for this to take all summer, so enjoy your summer. And ladies and gentlemen, it seems like that's what we're going to have to do. Besides that, Shams mentions that there's a few other teams that are interested in Donovan Mitchell, so the Knicks do have competition. Of course, the Miami Heat are one of those teams. You got the Washington Wizards. You got the Charlotte Hornets. Right? You know, some of those teams, I'm just like, you got the Atlanta Hawks. And I'm wondering why, when you talk about the Atlanta Hawks, right? They just got Dejounte Murray. They got Trae Young. Why do you need Donovan Mitchell? Doesn't make sense to me. I could actually see Donovan Mitchell next to LaMelo Ball in Charlotte, but I don't know if Donovan Mitchell wants to be in Charlotte, to be honest with you. Obviously, he doesn't have a choice as to where he would go. You know what I'm saying? The Utah Jazz control that portion of his contract. But Shams did say that Donovan Mitchell wants to be in a competitive situation. He prefers to be on a win-now team. Some people say, well, that points to Miami. I don't think it necessarily points to Miami. Of course, Miami is one of those teams that could give you a scare if you're a Knicks fan. Miami is one of those teams that could find a way to get something done, right? Because that's what Pat Riley does. And I'm pretty sure, pretty positive, that if the Miami Heat found a way to put together a package for Donovan Mitchell would love to be in Miami. Or he would like to be in Miami. I still think he wants to be a New York Knick, and I still think the Knicks have the best chance to land Donovan Mitchell because of the packages that they can offer. And right now, I think both teams are just playing games in the media to get the message across to each other as to what it's going to take. But they're far apart, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what does that actually mean? Who knows? We've seen it time and time again where teams are supposed to be far apart, and then they end up working out a deal, right? There's a lot of posturing going on. The Knicks, Leon Rose, they don't want to give up a slew of draft picks as well as a bunch of young players. The Utah Jazz, they want to start over, so they want a slew of draft picks, and they want a bunch of young players so that they can figure things out. Now, I don't think they want guys like R.J. Barrett, and this is not to put down R.J. Barrett. It's simply because he's due a contract extension. Because of that contract extension, they may not want to commit long-term to anybody right now. Unless, you know, it's a young super-duper, super-duper star. And R.J. Barrett's not that guy yet. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're still in a waiting game to find out what's going to happen with Donovan Mitchell. To find out what's going to happen with Donovan Mitchell, you know, the longer this takes, right? Lawrence Williams said the whole thing is exhausting. I agree. The whole thing is exhausting, right? Because as a Knicks fan, you're anticipating something to happen. You want something to happen, and you want to know what the next steps are. If Donovan Mitchell comes, what do the Knicks do now? If Donovan Mitchell does not come, what do the Knicks do now? Because there could still be some moves to be had out there. Some things could still pop off, right? You heard all of the rumors about Carmelo Anthony, that he's waiting to find out what happens with Donovan Mitchell, and that if Donovan Mitchell is a New York Knick, he could return to Madison Square Garden. So there's going to be some chips that fall, or dominoes that fall, whatever you want to say, when this whole thing happens with Donovan Mitchell. Got my man Uncle Fulio in the building. Let's get him in here. Uncle Fulio, what's going on with you, bro? How you feeling, man? And then I'm sure you've heard about, the rumor about, well, I don't want to say rumor, but you've heard about Donovan Mitchell and things going slow, between the New York Knicks and the Utah Jazz. What are your thoughts?
Sim, the Knicks have to make this move. They just have to. I'm going to be very, very upset if Donovan Mitchell traded to a team that's not named the New York Knicks. I'm just going to be upset. One, I mean, you think about all the assets the Knicks have been saving up. Leon Rose, when he came over and took over the reins as president of basketball operations, you knew that the Knicks eventually were going to swing the bat. They save up enough assets to do so. We're finally in a position where our books are pretty good right now, and we can be able to make this move not just with the amount of picks, but the amount of young players that we can be able to make this move. I'm going to be really upset if the Knicks don't make this move. Now, I know Tony's going to come at me because he's like, oh, at least the Knicks are trying. It's not like they didn't try. This is a results-oriented league, a results-oriented business. The Knicks have to be able to make this move. Even if Donovan Mitchell decides, or they decide they want to keep him in Utah and they don't trade him to anybody, I would feel much better about that than Donovan Mitchell being traded to a team that's not named the New York Knicks. So I just think we have to make this move.
But at some point, with every player, any player in any team, you got to draw the line in the sand somewhere.
Of course.
And if you don't, then teams are going to be like, well, we can get whatever we want from them because they never, ever draw any boundaries. So when you say they got to get the deal done, I mean, if they don't, if they just say, you know what, we'll go ahead and we'll give up everything to get them, then you're not going to be any better. So they got to draw a line in the sand, right?
Right, Sam, but you mentioned it yourself. The Knicks have the best package they can offer him.
Right.
This is not about the Knicks not drawing the line in the sand. Obviously, that's exactly what they're doing. They're drawing the line in the sand. However, if you have the best package available and somehow, Donovan Mitchell gets traded to another team, that just tells me that you didn't be able to get the job done, right? The Knicks have the best possible package that they can offer, period. They can offer the most draft
so let me ask you this. If their worst offer is better than opposing teams, whoever's competing for Donovan Mitchell is better than their best offer, and the Utah Jazz still say no, how much of that can the Knicks control? And what did the Knicks do wrong? Tell me this. What did the Knicks do wrong? If they have the best possible, if their worst package is better than any other team's best package, tell me what they did wrong.
Sim, this is not about the Knicks doing something wrong. It's not about that. You don't have to get defensive. I'm not coming after the Knicks.
I'm not. No. Listen. I'm not saying that you're coming after the Knicks.
Offer better than other teams' best offer.
But I'm not
blaming the Knicks.
I'm not saying that you're coming after the Knicks, but you're saying that they have to get this done. And what I'm asking you is this. If they have to get it done, that means you got to go all out to get them. But if they gave the best offer, their worst offer was better than everybody else, and the Utah Jazz still decided we're going to go with Miami for whatever reason, right? Whose fault is it?
Well,
because with what you're saying, it sounds like you would say that it's the Knicks' fault.
No, it's not the Knicks' fault. I'm not saying the Knicks are not trying to get Donovan Mitchell. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, obviously, it's not the best offer out there for Utah if they go with someone else. Obviously, why would Utah take less just to screw the Knicks over in some sort of way? That's not what we're talking about here. What I'm saying is, if the Knicks have the best package that they can offer, right, and then there's another team out there that is able to get Donovan Mitchell via trade, and their offer is similar to what the Knicks can possibly offer, I'm going to feel some type of way about that as a fan. I'm going to feel some type of way about that. I'm not saying the Knicks didn't try to get him. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, you built up all of your resources and you saved a whole bunch of draft picks. You have a whole bunch of assets to put you in this position to go out and swing the bat right now. And that everyone's been talking about it. Donovan Mitchell wants to be in New York and sitting there throwing around the first pitch. I'm talking about as a fan. I personally am going to be upset about that because now this is, I don't have Donovan Mitchell. This is the guy that we've been talking about for days and days on end, right? Mm-hmm. The Knicks have saved up a bunch of assets for years, right, to acquire someone like this, and for some reason we don't get him. I mean, I just think it's a results-oriented business, and you got to be able to get your guy. So I'm just going to be upset if the Knicks don't get him. I'm not saying it's the Knicks' fault. I'm not saying that at all. But I really want to have Donovan Mitchell on this team.
I mean, I do too. I want Donovan Mitchell to be on the team, but I also want the team to be competitive if and when they get him. You know what I mean? So I think, a line has to be drawn somewhere to make sure that the team is still competitive, because there is a world where you can trade for Donovan Mitchell and you give up so much that you're the same or you're worse.
What if it's draft picks?
Right? I'm not worried about draft picks, to be honest with you.
But what if it is the draft picks, though? What if the draft picks is what makes the difference in this situation? What about that scenario? Not necessarily gutting the team and taking players out of the rotation, but you draft picks. What if that's the case? And how am I supposed to feel as a fan at that point? I mean,
you're saying if the Knicks are being not given as many draft picks, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Me personally, I would like knowing the way that things are structured and you can only trade picks every other year, I would be upset. I'd be like, man, their draft picks, a lot of those draft picks are not even the Knicks. I would feel some kind of way because I'm like, give up the draft picks. I'm okay with it. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, we can only give up 5. We can only give up 6. I'm like, give up the draft picks, keep players, because we have young players. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And if you can give up more draft picks and keep more of your young players, now you have a fuller roster and you still have a pick every other year. And then you have ways to get other first-round draft picks, which is one of the reasons why the Knicks may even be interested in Russell Westbrook, even after the Donovan Mitchell trade. So I would feel some kind of way. You know what I mean? And I know there's a lot of people that are like, no, don't give up so many draft picks because you have nothing left in the cupboard to bring in more talent. And I kind of disagree with that because I believe the fact that you can only trade your draft pick in every other year means that every other year, you'll still be able to bring in talent. And the Knicks have 3 or 4 draft picks that's not even theirs, right? That belong to other teams. So I'm not as worried about the draft picks. And I would be upset if it came down to the draft picks. I would.
I mean, but
also, I would be upset, but I would also understand. The reason why I'm saying that I would understand is because you also want to have more draft picks to make moves later on so that you can make trades for more players, because we know you bring in Donovan Mitchell, it's not going to be a finished product. You got to make more moves. And you may need those draft picks to make more moves. And this may be the way that the front office is thinking.
If that's the way they're thinking, Sam, then I would totally understand that. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's a results-oriented business. Not to mention the Knicks, like you said, they have draft picks from other teams. It's not like the Knicks are depleting all of their draft assets to make this happen. That's not what four unprotected first-round picks is what the Knicks own. They own 4 unprotected first-round picks. If we lose those, we still have a plethora of other picks that we can be able to trade. They may not be as valuable, but we still have them. We still have them, and we can be able to make moves. So I just disagree with the notion that the Knicks will be completely hampered and completely crippled if they go out and trade for someone like Donovan Mitchell by giving up 4 unprotected first-round picks.
Well, they want more than 4 picks, right? They're going to want 7, 8 picks. right? So you.
That's what's being reported. I don't think that's realistic. Sam. I just don't.
I don't know.
That's what's being reported. I don't think that's realistic.
I don't know. I mean, 8 is probably the high number that they put out there, and they're looking at bringing in 6, right, between 4 and 6 picks. I think that's probably a realistic number, right? That they're actually looking to say, hey, this is what we want for Donovan Mitchell. But you got to remember, you can only trade picks in every other year. So if you trade those picks now for Donovan Mitchell, if someone else comes available, you may not be able to trade the picks that you do have, right? Because you can only trade your picks in every other year. Now, what you can do is you can draft the player and then trade the player that you drafted on draft night. You can do some things like that, right? So those are some ways around it.
But this is what I'm trying to say. Like, those 4 unprotected first round picks that the Knicks could potentially trade, right? So we're talking 23, 25, 27, and 29 first round picks, right? The Knicks will still have picks in 20, 26, 28, and 30. Not to mention some other teams that they can trade, right? They can also move those. And like you said, they can make those moves on draft night. This is a different situation compared to a team like Miami, who don't necessarily have the amount of assets. So if they give up 4 unprotected first-round picks, they are losing their draft capital. They are completely depleting their draft capital. They don't really have much else that they can be able to do. Other teams are also involved, the Kings I'm hearing, and all this, same situation with them. So this is why the Knicks are in the driver's seat as far as the first-round picks are concerned, and why I would personally be upset if the Knicks are unable to make this move, and I'll look at a team like Miami or another team out there that gives up a package that the Knicks can offer and still have some food left in the cupboard. I'm just going to be really upset about that. And again, I know that the Knicks are trying very hard to get this done. I'm hoping that they get this done. I still think that they will get this done. But again, that's how I feel about this right now. I think we have to get Donovan Mitchell. The writing's on the wall.
I want the Knicks to get Donovan Mitchell. I think they do need to get Donovan Mitchell. And I know people are saying, no, they have young guys. They don't need them. I think if you want to go to the next level, you need a guy like Donovan Mitchell. And now he's there for the taking. You know what I mean? So, yes, I do want the Knicks to get Donovan Mitchell. I'm going to get to a caller, and then I want to ask when we come back from the caller, in the event that he goes to a Sacramento or a Washington Wizards or, whoever else, Charlotte Hornets, Atlanta, he's not going to the Hawks, but, a lot of these teams out there that have been mentioned, I think are, maybe put out there by the Utah Jazz as a way to say, hey, you got some competition. You know what I mean? Because some of them just don't make sense to me. But what I want to talk about is this: if he is traded to another team, there's going to be some fallout of players. And how might the Knicks get involved? And, of course, it would be a disappointment. We all know that. But how might the Knicks get involved if there is a fallout of players? And who would you be looking at? But let me get to this caller real quick. Caller, you're live. Tell me your name and where you're from, please.
What's going on, Sam? What's going on, Josh? It's Nick in Jersey City.
Nick, what's poppin' with you, brother? How you feeling?
Good, feeling good. I'm looking forward to this deal getting done here. I think it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. I got to say something, though, and I don't want to steer the conversation. I feel like we could have got Dejounte Murray much cheaper than Donovan Mitchell, and it would have been a better fit. That's just my 2 cents. What do you feel about that?
You could have, maybe, maybe you could have got him cheaper. Who knows what it would have cost? I guess you could have got him cheaper. Is Donovan Mitchell is he the same player as Donovan Mitchell? I'm
not on offense. I don't think, I think he's not as explosive on offense, but no use crying over spilled milk, it's just, I saw what the Hawks did with that trade, and I said, man, we could do that. And now I'm looking at this Mitchell thing, and it's like, if we're going to have to, if we get Mitchell and we keep 2 of the 3 in terms of Obi, IQ, and Grimes, if we keep 2 of those 3 guys, that is a home run, in my opinion. I think we're going to have to give up 2 of those guys, and we're going to have to give up 5 first-round picks. And I think, my humble opinion, I think the where the negotiations are right now is Leon is offering Fournier as the salary. He's offering Cam, and he's offering him Jiri, and he's offering him maybe 4 first-round picks. And I think that's where this report comes out, that it's a worlds apart. I think Leon, 2 out of 3 of those guys, between Grimes, Obi, and IQ, but I don't think that that's where they are in the negotiations right now. So what you guys were just talking about, the Knicks' quote-unquote worst pick, offer is probably still better than a lot of these teams' best offers, because we could throw in 7 first-round picks and possibly do this deal based around the picks and possibly keep all 3 of those guys. Maybe that's a fantasy. Maybe we only lose IQ and we keep Grimes and Obi. That's a win.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I of all people, I understand that you got to give up something to get something, and it's going to cost some players. Leon's job, the front office, their job is to bring back the best, either bring back the best group of players possible, or keep the best group of players possible, right, to add around Donovan Mitchell. You know what I mean? Sham said that Donovan Mitchell wants to be in a win-now situation, right? So, and who knows if that's coming from Donovan Mitchell, but if it is, that's a clear message that, hey, don't trade away everybody because I want to be able to win. I'm not trying to, wait 3 years before we're competitive. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's tough, but I'll say this. I'm glad that they're being diligent. They're thinking about the team and not just like, hey, let's go get him. He's a star. Let's go get it. But they're thinking about the team and the construction of the team and what they'll need to compete. But in the end, I want them to get it done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think they will get it done. And I think it's going to be, Leon's not going to get fleeced. This is a new front office. And we're going to have at least one of those guys, probably Grimes, hopefully. Maybe we got to give up Grimes. But if we keep Grimes and Grimes backs up both RJ and Donovan, and we have a guy who could be out on the floor at the same time as Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, IQ probably is not going to be playing much small forward, So if we keep IQ, it's kind of like a redundancy. If we can keep Grimes in this trade, that's a win, And last thing I want to say, I would be very, very surprised if they traded Julius Randle after a Donovan Mitchell trade, just a dump salary, because there's nobody at the 4 spot coming in on the free agency class in 2023 that knocks you off your socks. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr., sure. I mean, but it's just this idea. We've been talking about Julius Randle. Oh, well, we got to get the ball out of his hands, right? We got to get him to stop playing point forward. Well, we just brought 2 of the highest usage guys in the league if we bring in Mitchell here. We got Mitchell. We got Brunson. They're going to be leading the floor. They're going to have the ball in their hands. Randall's not going to be playing point forward. He's going to be the 3rd option or even the 4th option on some nights. That's exactly what we want from Randall. That's where we want to put Randall. We owe it to ourselves to see if that will work. And if it doesn't work, then you trade Randall at the deadline or something like that.
I agree.
You don't dump him right now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%. I will say this. He's been training with tape over his mouth, learning how to breathe through his nose, constricting, the air that, comes into his lungs. Maybe he's training for high altitude. Maybe he knows something that we don't know. Just saying. I don't know.
Listen him to Toronto. Take care.
All right. Appreciate you, man.
Sim, I do want to address something Nick said, which is very important. It goes back to that previous point. The Knicks, basically, they could have gave up less for a player like Dejounte Murray. And I know this is hindsight, right? This is all hindsight. I'm not trying to go back. But they passed up on something like that potentially to go after someone like Donovan Mitchell because they may have heard something that Donovan Mitchell was going to be available, that they were going to break up Gobert and Mitchell. You passed up on a guy like that who basically answers every question that we have about Donovan Mitchell right now: the defense, the triple doubles, the the fit right next to Jalen Brunson. They passed on that for a guy like Donovan Mitchell. If we don't get him, just like as a fan, hearing all this stuff, I'm just saying, I know the Knicks are trying their very hardest to make this deal happen, but I just personally feel like they have to get this guy. They have to get him. That's just my opinion.
What's going on with Dejounte Murray though? Because things are starting to come out that maybe it started to go sour in San Antonio, or maybe he's a little more immature than we thought he was. And I'm not gonna lie, during the time that he was, and I did want the Knicks to trade for him, right? Because I didn't think anything was happening with Donovan Mitchell, and I was all for it if the Knicks were really considering making a move for Dejounte Murray. But I was seeing him say and do things on social media that I felt was outside of his character, at least from what I knew of him. You know what I mean? And I did start to question some things like, hey, what's going on? Like, why is he doing these things? Because it seemed like it was outside of his character. Anything you know about, just really quick, Dejounte Murray?
Well, I do know there was some questions about him when he got drafted. That's the reason why he fell solo to San Antonio. There was a lot of questions about that. There's been immaturity issues. He definitely got into a lot of trouble early on in his life, being from Seattle and going through all the stuff that he was going through up there. So those questions have always been there. Personally, I'm under the mindset that talent matters more than all the rest of that stuff. Not saying all the rest of that stuff does not matter, but to me, talent outweighs all. And if I'm the Knicks, I'm worried about the other stuff, but also I'm looking at that talent. To me, that's going to outweigh the other stuff, in my opinion. That's just me.
Okay. Well, this regime has tried as much as they can to bring in, very high character guys. It seems to be, something that they're very mindful of. You know what I mean? Obviously, you got Julius Randle there, but the Knicks, this regime didn't bring in Julius Randle. And I'm not going to say he's not a high character guy. He's got character. You talking about off the court type of stuff. He's definitely got character. You're not worried about Julius Randle getting in trouble. It's on the court, that you worry about him going off. You know what I mean? Just a question. Maybe they know something, and that's the reason why they weren't all in, or maybe they just value Donovan Mitchell a little bit more. And they knew that some things were going down with Donovan Mitchell, so they said, we're going to save our chips for Donovan Mitchell. But if that's the case, you're right. They got to make sure that they get him. Let me get to a couple of super chats here, and then I'll get to a phone call. Clutch Kicks. Thank you for the super chat. You said the Knicks need to make the trade. Leon needs to take his time and make Ainge come down on price. He's not worth 6 firsts and our young players. This is where, listen, sounds like both Ainge and Leon Rose are staunch negotiators. And, they're playing the game right now. They're playing the game. They both got that mindset that you just mentioned. Relaxing nature sounds. Thank you for the super chat. You said, I know he doesn't mean to, but Josh is sounding like someone who got a lot of money burning in the pocket, just ready to pay over the price just for the cause.
Like I mentioned previous shows when we were talking about the cap and everything in regards to the NBA, you don't win being cheap in the NBA. You do not win being cheap in the NBA. Almost every team in the league spends over the salary cap. Half the league spends over the luxury tax. Not all of those people are contenders. The Knicks need to spend money. This is New York we're talking about. This is New York. And I know me and Sam are going to go back and forth. We probably won't go back and forth about this, but we did in the past. It matters when you play in New York. You have a lot of luxuries that a lot of teams in the NBA do not have. And I just leave it at that.
Yeah. Listen, he does got money in his pocket, though. I ain't going to say nothing. I'm not counting another man's pocket, but he got some money in his pocket. So he's not afraid to spend it because he's got a lot left over. Let me get to this call here. Caller, you're live. Tell me your name and where you're from. Or maybe the caller ain't here. I don't know what's going on. Let me see. Maybe the caller ain't here. Anyway, Josh, as we're waiting for another caller, and we had a caller on the line, maybe he or she hung up. If the Knicks do not get Donovan Mitchell, and some of these other teams, one of these other teams are able to nab him, there's going to be some fallout. What would you want to see the Knicks do within that fallout?
I'm not really looking at any other player that's on the market right now that I would like to add in this rotation, someone that's available, or at least someone that is on the free agent market or anything like that. I don't really think there's any other player that I would like to see added to this rotation outside of Carmelo Anthony, right? I like Carmelo, but that's just a small time kind of back end of the rotation kind of piece that I'm looking to add. I think the Knicks would be fine with the roster they got going into next season. I don't think there's many more moves that they need to do to shake it up. They can go into the season as is, roster currently constructed. Now, I don't think the team would be as good as they would be without Donovan Mitchell. There's no doubt about that. But ultimately, I think the Knicks are just going to kind of, make a couple moves here and there, maybe bring in a Carmelo, another veteran to play on that bench, and then go into the season that way. And then attempt to just kind of do what they were already going to do before the Donovan Mitchell news broke that Utah was potentially looking to take calls on.
Yeah. I'm not sure, what would be out there that I'd be really interested in. If they're talking about bringing in another wing player, who? I don't know. You know what I mean? When you look at the teams, the Washington Wizards, I don't know who they can give up or what they can give up. You know what I mean? The Sacramento Kings, they got 3 guards that are the same size as Donovan Mitchell. If they bring in Donovan Mitchell, they would have 3 guards. So obviously, a guy like Davion Mitchell would probably be on the move. And then there would be questions all about De'Aaron Fox and whether or not he's going to be on the move. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess if it doesn't happen, I'm just going to rock with the group we got instead of trying to force the issue with somebody else. You know what I mean? Just rock with the group that's there and, see if something else can happen later on. No need to force the issue, in my opinion. In other news, I guess the Knicks have had talks with the Los Angeles Lakers about Russell Westbrook. I'm assuming that if they were to trade for Russell Westbrook, it would really be for, I don't know who they would include in the package, especially if Donovan Mitchell came. If Donovan Mitchell comes and they still trade for Russell Westbrook, it would clearly be so that they can obtain a draft pick from the Los Angeles Lakers, and then they'd have to get off of a big contract. So you'd probably be looking at Julius Randle and maybe Evan Fournier. Russell Westbrook is $40 million. You know what I'm saying?
47.
Or 47, yeah. So you'd be looking at 2 larger contracts. So I'd be looking at Evan Fournier and Julius Randle being shipped out to the Los Angeles Lakers with Russell Westbrook and a draft pick coming back. And then I wouldn't expect Russell Westbrook to actually play unless somehow, some way, you switched around the lineup and he's coming off the bench. Because there's no way you would have Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, and Russell Westbrook in the starting lineup together. Right? It's no way, in my opinion. So he would have to then come off the bench. I don't think the Knicks would be looking to keep him. I think they would really be trying to bring that draft pick on. And as a matter of fact, when you think about it, it could be a way, if they really want Donovan Mitchell, that they're trying to grab another draft pick that they can move on to the Utah Jazz. But are they willing to give up Julius Randle to do so? Right? What's your thoughts on it?
I think that last scenario that you put out there is absolutely a possibility. And I was talking with Andy and Tony about this. I think, if the Knicks are struggling to get a deal done with Utah because we may give up too much or what have you, I think there's a good possibility that the Lakers would be a third team that we can add in this trade. And typically all this stuff doesn't happen simultaneous. Sometimes it happens, the first part of the trade happens and then the second part happens, the next day or later in the day or something like that, kind of similar to what happened with, the Karis LeVert trade in Brooklyn and all that stuff. So I think there's a real scenario where the Knicks are going to include a third team that has a big expiring contract that they want to get rid of and get off their books, like the Lakers, that can be able to, get Russell Westbrook into the trade. I think Russell Westbrook will go to Utah in that scenario. I think they'll be willing to give up off of Bogdanovic's contract. Obviously, we'll take Mitchell. Utah take one of the Lakers' first-round picks. Then the Lakers will probably take back Clarkson, Bogdanovich. We'll take Mitchell. And then Julius Randle. Julius Randle could potentially go to either the Lakers in that scenario. I think that's definitely a possibility. And I think when Mark Stein put that article out, everyone kind of looked at it like, the Knicks are going to do this for Westbrook first and then going after Donovan Mitchell. I think what he was trying to convey was that Westbrook was going to be a part of the Donovan Mitchell trade to help the Knicks actually facilitate that.
Okay. Now, if the Knicks are not able to land Donovan Mitchell, do you think they look at Russell Westbrook as a plan B, or do they just stick with the young guys?
I don't know. I just can't see it happening. I can't see the Knicks getting rid of Randall and Fournier unless they're really thinking about next season's free agency. Unless that's what they're thinking about, because Russell Westbrook is a $47 million expiring contract. I'm pretty sure the Knicks only have to make up 40 or 42 million of that to the Lakers. So that could be a possibility. I just don't see them settling for next year's free agency with $47 million coming off their payroll. I really don't see the Knicks doing that at this current point in time.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be. It's not something. I'd rather just stick with the young guys. I do understand you could trade Rose and Evan Fournier. That's 30-something million right there. So then you still got to make up, another amount of money, basically. 10 million or something like that. To try to match the salary. And like you said, you don't have to match the entire thing, but you'd have to try to match that salary. I don't know who else you would move in order to do that. It would probably be one of the young players. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, if you look at it this way, if let's say the young player is Cam Reddish, he's an expiring contract. Rose is an expiring contract. So that's 30 or not 30. That's $20 million coming off the books right there that you have coming off anyway. Right. The only thing that you'll be really giving up is the extra year for Evan Fournier that you signed to that extra season, his $18 million contract. So that's really what you're trading for, right? Essentially. Right. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. I think if the Knicks want to get off Fournier's contract, there's a way to do it right there, because there's no guarantee that Reddish is going to be here, and definitely not Rose either. So it's definitely possible.
I mean, listen, I couldn't stand seeing Russell Westbrook and Julius Randle play together on the floor.
Oh yeah, that's another part.
I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. It'd be ugly, super ugly basketball. You know what I mean?
And lack of shooting.
It would be terrible. So I can't see the Knicks really wanting to trade for Russell Westbrook as part of the team. It would all be for salary dump purposes and that. All that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Right. It wouldn't be anything serious. I really, if it were to happen, I don't think it happens. The only way I see it happening is if the Knicks get Donovan Mitchell, and it would be part of a 3-team or more trade to get more draft picks to Utah. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way that I see it actually happening. And then it would be probably Obi at the starting power forward spot and Carmelo Anthony backing up Obi Toppin or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds more likely than us trading for Westbrook straight up.
Right. So, there it is. But, the Knicks are having those conversations, and maybe those conversations are so that, they can try to acquire another draft pick. Big shout out to my man, Jay Boogie. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you, my brother. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Still on hold. We don't know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. And for those who are trying to call in, I apologize that the phone lines, for weeks now, this phone line has been messed up. I'm just going to switch over to a new system so it's not constantly messing up. I'm not going to say the name of the company. All right. Because I'm just not going to do that. But the phone line ain't working the way that I want it to work. So I may have to switch over to somebody else so that we can make sure we get these calls in. So I apologize. I know I have some people calling in, but for whatever reason, it's not picking up the way it's supposed to pick up. I don't know, Josh. What do you think? Does the deal get done? Do you think the deal gets done?
Sam, I'm still optimistic that the deal gets done. I'm not really listening to all the smoke out there about all the other teams. I think that definitely it's possible, but I think the Knicks still have the best potential package that they can offer. And I think what the Jazz is doing, utilizing the media to their advantage, essentially is trying to get the Knicks to go up on their price. But I think the Knicks still are in the driver's seat with this whole thing. And let's just see what takes place. Hopefully we're able to land them and bring them home.
Yeah. I hope that if it gets done, if it's going to happen, it gets done soon. I don't want to waste out the entire summer, trying to figure this out. And it's better for the team. It's better for everyone if it just gets done. That way he can start working with the team, so on and so forth. Before we get up out of here, just a couple of quick questions. And I do want to let you know, Knicks and Bruises, I think it's going to be on about 6:45. And I think they're going to be, Tony's going to be talking about, and I may be able to join him as well and be on there. Going to be talking about Jalen Brunson and, some takeaways from, his interview with, what is it?
JJ Redick podcast.
JJ Redick, Old Man and 3 or whatever it is. Any takeaways from there for you?
No, I mean, Jalen Brunson's been really candid, with a lot of stuff he's been saying about the Knicks and his relationship with Tibbs and Leon Rose. This was something that, again, writing on the wall, where everyone knew that, or at least seemed like everyone around NBA circles and the media, the national media, kind of knew that this is something that was headed. It was headed in this direction for us to get Jalen Brunson. And now he's more open and candid about, relationships that Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau and William Wesley and all these guys have had for years now, even dating back to when Rick Brunson was on the Knicks. So this is, I guess, step one. And, when we hired Leon Rose and William Wesley, their relationship starting to come to fruition. And now the Knicks are starting to get talent based off of those relationships. Hopefully we can be able to land Donovan Mitchell. Hopefully it can, ascend and get to that. So
yeah. Did his interview satisfy your media? Your problem with the whole media thing? Did it satisfy it? They brought it up on the podcast. No, it didn't satisfy it because, again, I don't think the press conference was not specifically about Jalen Brunson himself. I think that's why you have the front office there so they can answer questions. A lot of times, the whole entire season, everyone's complaining about the front office. It wasn't a press conference. It wasn't a press conference.
There was no press there. Of course not.
It wasn't a press conference. It wasn't even billed as a press conference.
I know. It was a player introduction.
Right. It wasn't even advertised as a press conference.
I know. It was a player introduction.
Yeah, a press conference will come. That's why they have a whole media day. The press conference will come.
Well, I tell you what, I've never seen a team have a player introduction without inviting the press there. I've never seen a team do that before, but whatever.
Hey. I introduced my players to each other without the media there.
Good on you, Sam. Good on you.
What's your thoughts about Kevin Durant? Not just Kevin Durant, but Brooklyn and Boston. And the possibility of Kevin Durant going to Boston.
That one's real tricky because, the Celtics just were in the NBA Finals. They beat Brooklyn, right? They beat Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. It's talking about giving up Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart for someone like Kevin Durant. I mean, that's a tough one. Because I like Jaylen Brown's one of my favorite players in the NBA. I like Jaylen Brown a lot. But we're talking about Kevin Durant here. And on top of that, the Celtics now have a point guard in Malcolm Brogdon, right? So it's not like they're going to lose Marcus Smart and not have a point guard anymore. They got someone who I feel like is a better point guard, so to speak, in Malcolm Brogdon, who can also knock down the three-point shot. So it's a tough call for me. If I'm Boston, I'm not necessarily rushing to make that deal, but I'm definitely listening to it and considering it.
I'm listening. And
if I'm Brooklyn, I'm taking a deal.
If I'm Brooklyn, I'm taking it. I'm taking it if I'm Brooklyn. There's no doubt about it. But if I'm Boston, I'm careful. Because you have a team that's very young and growing. You know what I mean? And may have a chance to be title contenders for the next 5 to 6 years. Do you have that?
That's if Brown and Tatum decide they want to resign, but
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's true. Of course, they got to decide that. You bring in KD, you got a 3 to 4 year window to win it. You know what I mean? I mean, even with Boston being the age that they are now, and another 3 to 4 years, you got guys just entering their prime. So you still got a lot of years to win it. You bring in KD, you got 3 to 4 years to get that thing done, and it's tough. I don't know. I don't know if I would do
Yeah,
it if I was Boston. I'm not gonna lie.
If I'm Brooklyn, I'm making that deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You're talking about adding Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart to a team with Ben Simmons, to a team, I guess, and Kyrie Irving potentially. If Kyrie Irving, whatever's going on with him, if he decides to stay or whatever, there's reports saying that he's staying now. So if I'm Brooklyn, I'm making that deal because now you got a young player that you can really build around, and Jaylen Brown. You put him on the floor with Ben Simmons. I don't know. I like that for Brooklyn.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the Celtics, I'd be really careful with it. You got something going that could be sustainable for a while. Be peaceful, spread love, and stay cool, ladies and gentlemen, because it's blazing hot outside. I'm out of here. Peace.